Of the stock whip, the horses come galloping home, leaping and playing with sides of some gamely to follow, stumbling and stiff in the shoulder, and splints from the hoof to the knee. On the station, as half such a spirit as he, give these all the boast of their breeding. Live with the pearl of them all. Journey has ever yet beat too heavy or hard. King of the camp and the mustard, and pride of the wings of the yard. To follow the best of us, bound to his call, death with his scythe and his shoulder. Come with a whirl, laughing gay rides with a girl. How she decked, planted his mane at my side, and once in the grief of a parting, threw her arms round him and cried.
Love doesn't end with dying or leave with the last breath, but someone you have loved dearly
Love goes on forever. As you are aware, a fine gentleman has been lost to us. So today we are all here to celebrate the life of Bob Marshall. I ask that you please feel free to be at one with your sorrow, your sadness, your grief, and your memories, but I also ask you to feel the gladness, the happiness, the purpose and the serenity of a life so well lived. We are here today because Bob found the comfort and contentment of peace. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tracy Whiting, and I am very honoured to have been asked to conduct this ceremony for you today. On behalf of the Marshall family, I thank you all for your presence here today as we commemorate with sorrow, but also with respect, joy, and thankfulness for the life of Bob. In many ways, death unites us all, for it demands that each of us put aside our toil, our business, and our pleasure to unite ourselves with everyone here, fellow mourners who share in a common bond of love and respect for Bob. As with any funeral service, this is a time for expressing our sorrow at his death and for trying to comfort those who are closest to him. Today we will reach out to each other and help comfort and soothe the aches in your hearts, but mostly this is a time for celebrating his life. Today we come here to honour who he was in his life and in our own lives. It is through each of us that his memory stays alive and what he stood for will be carried forth. I'm sure that Bob would not want you to grieve in hurt or pain, but think of the joy that he has given, that he has received, and that he has shared. Now call upon Bob's family, Leslie, Tracy and Davin, to please sing Bobby's special request. And if anyone else knows the words to this song, please feel free to join in with them.
Thank one and all for coming here today. I think this song, as to why Bob has requested this song, he asked us to sing this song for him because he said, if you owned a block of dirt, you were the biggest gambler in the world. And also, the chorus of the song that says, it's time to with that. It is exactly how he wanted to, on his own terms and with dignity, which was very, very important to him. If anybody knows the words to this song, could they please join us as we sing this song for Bob today? Thank you.
Train bound for fed up with gambling, both too tired to sleep, so we took turns staring. And he began to by the way they held their eyes. So if you don't mind me saying, lost all expression. Said if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta. away, knowing somewhere in the darkness, the gambler I found an ace that I could keep. Know when to run, you never. Time enough for counting.
I would now like to share with you this short verse for you, which so epitomises Bobby. It's called Success by Bessie Anderson Stanley. He has achieved success who has lived well, laughed often and loved much, who has enjoyed the trust of a pure woman, the respect of intelligent men and the love of little children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who has left the world better than he found it, whether by an improved copy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who has never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given them the best he had, whose life was an inspiration, whose memory a benediction. So now we call forward Tracy, Davin and Rachel to read Bob's eulogy that he has prepared for himself.
Want me to start? Yeah. Okay. So before I start, Davin wanted me to mention.
Davin wanted me to mention that this is a story of Bobby's life that he wrote, and it fails to mention the blood, the sweat, the tears, and the love that went with the story. Over till my family sings. My time has been rewarding and satisfying, spanning over a wonderful era. I was fortunate to exceed the 10 years life expectancy by more than 10 years. How lucky is that? I've never envied anyone, and the dollar has never been my god. I set my own goals, backed my own judgments, and paid my own penalties. They were numerous enough. I was born to Brent and Clara Marshall in Springshaw on the 27th of April 1940. I have 2 older and 2 younger sisters, and no, I was not spoiled. As the older ones would bash me, and the younger ones would tell on me. So really, we have always got on well, early in life as well as later in life. Childhood years on Semperidum and Moyenda, both being grazing properties. My parents purchased paid the kids at state school. I completed primary there and secondary at Gatton College. School, I remember a school inspector asking me what I'd like to do on leaving school. I replied a drover, and he was devastated at such a lowly ambition.
Account is that different careers call for different skills. We need the hands-on as well as the academic skills. Turning 17, I started droving small mobs in my own right, including store and meatworks cattle. All stock movements walked on stock routes as nobody had stock crates even for their horses. Having worked with a lot of ringers, I had no colour bars in my camps. I found early that ability was a much better asset. I carried on droving for several years until transport developed and infringed on us. 3 of us from Springshaw landed jobs in mustering camps in the Gulf country. All mustering up there in those days was on horseback. The only vehicles were light camp trucks. We're a bit apprehensive about the good men in the north. However, we fitted in no trouble, a great experience with mates and memories. Back to Springshaw, and on a trip to Rockhampton, I met the greatest asset of my life. I managed to rescue Leslie from the nunnery on Upper Dawson Road, Rockhampton. We were married in 1964, and when meeting new people, I would often let drop that Leslie was a nun before we were married. Then when introducing Leslie's parents, Bert and Beryl Nunn, at some later date, facial expressions were a study when the penny dropped. We spent our early married life with myself as head stockman on 2 properties, Marlborough Station and Emerald Downs. In 1967, we purchased a starter block, Mount Curio at Springshaw, and we both worked, then sold it after 5 years. We then purchased Swanley and Overton. We walked our cattle over via Medway, Bogantungan to Jericho and out through Blairgowrie to the lake. We were in time for the 1974 Big Wet, seeing Lake Galilee fill, and also in time for the start of the 1970s beef slump. In 1975, we purchased 1,200 wethers from Bill Spence at Gooey. The sheep plus off-farm work saw us survive the 1975 depression. It was a big learning curve with heart leaf, nutrition, botulism and lepto. With help and expertise of the DPI, we worked out a plan that worked and suited us. When cattle prices picked up in the 80s, we went out of sheep and acquired Beard and Blandfield. We also pulled our Gidgee scrub on Swanley. We worked as a team of 4. We have 2 children, Tracy and Davin, both of whom as registered primary producers since the ages of 6 and 3 respectively. They grew up working cattle with horses with an early introduction to the 60-hour week. Leslie, as well as being cook, teacher, ball puller, yard worker, etc., made herself available for a lot of volunteer work in our region. This culminated in becoming runner-up for ABC Rural Women of the Year, which made us feel very proud. I spent 12 years, 1988 to 2000, as a counsellor. I enjoyed being part of the teams to get things going. A few coming to mind are proper stocking rates for our stock routes, teleconferencing, banking facilities, the Lake to Fleetwood Road making a last wet weather road going north, and council contributing money to put power on site for the Desert Recreation Club. We ended up with both of our children married, and they presented us with 6 grandchildren. Davin has 4 children, Lacey, Brent, Tom and Jed. Tracy has 2, Connor and Zoe. It was always our plan to hand it down, so we started a succession plan for the family in the year 2000 and completed it in 2020. Leslie and I moved into our house in Aramac in 1997. I have been a backup stand-in driver for the Aramac Rural Mail runs from 2000 to 2020. I also helped out on the properties when needed, tried furniture restoration and struggled through a few bush ballads. Child abuse, but the family wound up with the land and cattle. It's not Kidman, but still a good modest start for our children. In 2001, the Desert Uplands Committee presented a suggestion from the Aramac Shire Council of a Redford cattle duffing reenactment to celebrate the Year of the Outback. The council adopted it and explored the best way to go about it. A committee was formed and the council looked after the funding, and I got together 3 volunteer drovers. My drovers were there for just over 3 months all up. The Redford drives went really well over the years and won several tourism awards over the years. I stepped down as boss drover after 2006 and still volunteered as a drover with David Hay, who then took up the operation. Over its time, it has grown from strength to strength. That roughly covers my life. We have done the grain nomad thing on several occasions. I've travelled in all states except Victoria and Tasmania. I'll be totally retired in Aramac, where I can spend my time tending my chooks and vegetable garden with Leslie.
Girl, I believe this song was written about my dad. Could move a mountain or pull down a big oak tree. A mighty fine man with a mighty big heart and a simple philosophy. Do what you do well, boy. Do what you do well. Give your heart and all your love. Later, reflecting back, I believe that Dad gave all the things in that song 100%. Dad created a kingdom in the toughest and most beautiful country on God's earth, his beloved Yellowjack Desert. He carved out this kingdom with a tireless heart and his bare hands. Always loved my father's hands. They represent everything he was, strong and capable, tough and scarred, ripping off great chunks of skin knuckle and keeping on doing whatever they were busily doing, ignoring the blood and the sting. As time passed, they became bent and gnarly, but they didn't slow down. In this time, they got to push grandkids on swings and hold the chubby hands of his granddaughters as they walked around the garden picking flowers for Ma. In later years, they became clean and soft, which made me sad. I knew they were on the last leg of their busy, hard-working journey, and now their work is done. Dad loved us through the acts of service of those magnificent hands. My father taught me to work by example from a young age, and he bequeathed me a work ethic and the intestinal fortitude to do what needs to be done every day, whether you feel like it or not. More outside, not so much dusting and mopping. He invoked in me a fierce and protective love of that tough yet fragile kingdom. These things are his legacy to me. Thank you, Dad. I love you.
On the personal side, I want to talk about what Bob meant to me as a father-in-law and what he meant to each of his grandchildren. I'm extremely grateful for the love and care Bob has shown me over the time I've been in his family. I've always seen the softer side of him and the love he has shown his family through dedication and hard work. Grateful for the time and effort he put into each of his grandchildren and the legacy he leaves behind because of his relentless hard work to build something we all continue to benefit from. Children to come up one at a time in a minute and to place something on top of Bobby that reminds us so dearly of him. Lacey. Lacey has written for Bobby, what I will cherish the most about Bobby is that he taught me what it is to be unconditionally loved. Throughout my entire life, he has made me feel nothing but special to him and loved. I will treasure our deep connection for the rest of my life and hope one day we will be picking flowers for Ma together again. Jed, the last thing I said to Bobby was, I want to be a hard-working man like you and Dad. Bobby said to me, hard work pays off because now I have all of you. I will never forget those words, probably for the rest of my life, and now every time my life starts to get difficult, or I don't feel like doing something, I will find comfort in his words of wisdom. Zoe. The most connecting time I spent with my grandfather was at the Harry Redford cattle drive. I know that we both had very fond memories of this time and we would often reminisce. I love sharing in his passion and being part of something that he loved. I remember admiring the way he carried himself with such pride and confidence. I learnt a lot from Bobby and I will never forget our precious times together. I never doubted he loved me. He always extended his kindest side to me and I loved him fiercely back. I will truly miss him dearly and I will forever cherish every conversation, hug and laugh we shared. Tom couldn't be here with us today. Tom, I remember Bobby trying really hard to teach me how to ride horses. I tried a couple of times when I was really small and this one time the horse got a fright and started pig rooting. I managed to hang on and managed to ride it right across the curling pen over to a lump of cement where I fell off and split my chin on the cement. Bobby had to take me up to Mum, blood everywhere, feeling very sheepish. That was the end of my riding career, the whole 3 years. The other thing I liked about Bobby was his wicked sense of humour. He would bait Ma and I would think how cheeky you would be doing that to her. Honour. For me, Bobby was the personification of hard work, always having his family as the end goal. Through his hard work and love for the land, he has set up his children and grandchildren for success, not just through wealth, but by passing on his passion and knowledge for working on the country. Often, as I've been working around the place on Swanlee, I imagine the tough labour Bobby went through to do the things we do easily now with technology advancements. I really cannot fathom doing those things myself and admire Bobby for putting in those hard yards. As a young man, my relationship with Bobby became closer, even though we saw each other less, as I gained the ability to conversate more meaningfully, and it was something I enjoyed taking the time to do with Bobby, him often saying something quite funny and random, which I shared his humour with. I've always felt a deep sense of belonging in my family, as they have always been accepting of my life choices, and Bobby was no exception. He recently sent me a letter reaffirming that he trusts my decisions in life and has faith in my ability to do well. This is a letter I will treasure dearly forever. I have loved Bobby my whole life and I'm glad we were able to share some good stories and laugh a lot the last couple of times we caught up. Rest in peace, Bobby. Brent. The last time I spoke to Bobby was on my birthday over the phone, about a week before he passed. He told me this was going to be the last time I spoke to him. He said this in a calm, nonchalant tone, as if he was trying to take all the worry, stress and heartache out of what he knew would be a tough time for me and everyone in the family. This is the type of man Bobby was, an old school, tough Aussie battler who didn't want anyone to worry too much about him, an independent man. Men of his generation can often be misunderstood as being cold and unemotional. A lot of people struggle to understand that this is the way they were brought up to show love for their family, working as hard as possible to create a comfortable life for everyone around them, which is what Bobby strived to do. I knew him from a grandson perspective. He was always kind and loving towards me, passing on knowledge with almost every conversation. This is how I will remember him, the last of a tough, dying breed of men, tough as nails on the exterior, but once you get to know them, some of the kindest, most generous men you will ever have the pleasure of knowing.
Does anyone else have a tribute that they'd like to bring forward now? Is there anyone here that would like to come forward to say a few words? Please come forward now.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name's Shane Metyard. I got to know the Marshall family through, I was best friends with Bob's son Davin at boarding school. And I'll never forget the first time I came out to Swanlee as a 15-year-old and how kind Bob was. He'd sit there and talk to me for hours. And I realised then he wasn't someone who judged people. If he liked them, no, he'd yarn along. The other thing I noticed when I first went out there and met Davin's parents was the deep love that Leslie and Bob had for each other. They had a very, very special bond. And I've also had Bob on a pedestal because he started from nothing. Worked hard, worked his way up till he could buy Swanlee. Then he dealt with the cattle slump. He had to go and work next door, had to get sheep, took another risk. And then he didn't put the cue in the rack. When things came a bit better, he bought more land to build up something that he could leave in legacy for his children. The other thing Bob did was which is very important, is community service. He chose to be on the council, and councillors weren't paid anything back then. So he gave a lot of time to the council. He was also the mayor for quite some time, so deeply contributed to his community. So he sort of had it all. He was hardworking, he was loving, he was caring, and he was community minded. So I'll leave it at that, but I've still got you on a pedestal, Bob.
Is there anyone else that'd like to say a few words?
Well, family and friends, the time has come
To say.
our final farewell to Bob.
Before we do, Bob has some
Final words
to share.
with you. So can you please be upstanding?
For those of you who don't know me, my name's Amanda and I first met Bob. So I'm very happy to be able to read this last song for him, the last poem for him. As you know, he loved penning a few poems and things, and this one he couldn't miss out on writing his own last one. My use date by date has arrived, the old judge waiting in the wings with a stopwatch and a whip to crack when the family sings. Ooh, the whip curls are unfurling, so folks, it's time to fly and leave my earthly life behind. To one and all, this is goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Place to go. Children. Shelter from ocean, but I need hope. You're wrong when I'm tired and weak. Search everything that I need. Shelter were my best friend.
You may be seated. At the conclusion of the service today, you are invited to the Harry Redford's. No? Sorry. Refreshments and finger foods, and to share with the special memories you shared with Bob. We are grateful for the life that Bob lived and for all that he's meant to us. We felt the pressure of his hand. We cherish the memories of his words, his deeds, and his character. Cherish his friendship, and most of all, we cherish his love. We now leave the memory of our beloved Bob in peace. With enduring love and respect, we bid him farewell, and let us promise him to have our devotion to things worthwhile and fill our own lives with words and actions of real meaningful worth. May you find richness and example in your memories of Bob. May you find strength and support in your love for one another. And may you find peace in your hearts. Goodbye, Bob.
Cards I built my heart. Found a game that I can't play. And there's
Go. Here. You want to hold on to me?